Thank you for watching episode 3 of year 5 of leadership training. We're looking at theme number 2, vision and purpose. Let's look at the ministry principles from Nehemiah, focusing on casting vision and call others to God's work. Let's open our Bibles, ready to read the passages we'll be glancing at, because in the number of the principles and verses, you will need to read them for yourselves. I'll reference them, but not read them aloud during the training. So, with prayer, let's apply these biblical principles from God's Old Testament book of Nehemiah. Every minister, leader, servant leader must know not only what needs to be done, but also why it matters. Nehemiah shows us that vision begins with God's burden, is shaped through prayer and preparation, and is shared in ways that call others to join in God's work. Vision without clarity leaves people confused, but vision without courage leaves people unmotivated. True leadership is helping people see God's purpose and calling them to live it out together. Let's look at the 10 principles about vision and purpose. Each principle follows the format of Nehemiah's story, key idea, and a short ministry example as we look at the 10 principles about vision and purpose. Number 1. Assess quietly before acting publicly. Comes from chapter 2, verses 11 through 15. Nehemiah arrived in Jerusalem, but didn't announce his plans right away. At night, he inspected the broken walls quietly, learning the situation before speaking. This key ministry idea is wise leaders take time to understand before acting. As an example, a new youth volunteer observes the group for several weeks before suggesting changes, ensuring they understand the ministry's needs first. The second principle, share vision simply and clearly. Chapter 2, verses 17 and 18. After examining the ruins, Nehemiah gathered the people and spoke plainly. You see the trouble we are in. Let's rebuild the wall. His simple vision stirred action. This ministry principle is that clear and simple vision inspires action. As an example, a missions leader presents a short, direct goal. Let's sponsor 5 missionaries this year. Clear and simple vision. Principle number 3, build with people, not just plans. Chapter 2, verse 18. When Nehemiah shared how God's hand was with him, the people responded, let us rise up and build. The vision was about God and his people, not just blueprints. This principal idea is that vision thrives when people are invested in it. Number 4, expect opposition. This comes from Nehemiah chapter 2, verse 19. Nehemiah got mocked and was mocking the rebuilding efforts. And Nehemiah wasn't surprised when he got mocked. Opposition showed up almost immediately when God's work began. The key idea here is vision will always, always, always face resistance. A ministry example, a deacon pushing for outreach meets criticism from members who prefer the status quo, but the deacon remains calm and steady. Ministry principle from Nehemiah chapter 2, verse 20. Stand firm in God's calling. Nehemiah's boldly proclaimed to the enemies that the God of heaven will give us success. His confidence rested on God's calling, not human approval. This principle is that leaders stand firm in God's call, not people's praise. As an example, a lay leader, a servant leader, continues leading a recovery ministry despite doubts from others, trusting God's call to help the hurting. Very important. How about from Nehemiah chapter 3? Share ownership of the vision. Families, priests, merchants, and rulers all worked on different sections of the wall. Everyone had a share, and the vision became theirs, not just Nehemiah's. The key principle here is people are more committed when they own the vision. Ministry example, a children's ministry leader asked volunteers to choose specific areas, teaching craft, snacks, whatever, so everyone has ownership of Vacation Bible School. Number 7 of the 10 principles, commit publicly to God's covenant. Chapter 9, verses 38 through chapter 10, verse 39. After revival and confession, the people signed a written covenant. Their public commitment showed that they were serious about God together, right? Relationship commitment. Key principle here, public commitment strengthens vision. Public commitment. Ministry example, church members signing a covenant with the church to pray daily for revival, uniting them in purpose. The 8th principle comes from chapter 10, verses 28 through 39. Define ministry expectations clearly. Expectations clearly. The covenant spelled out specific responsibilities, keeping the Sabbath, giving offerings, supporting the temple. Clear expectations guided their faithfulness. The principle here is that clear expectations support lasting vision. A lay leader who's the choir director explains rehearsal times, dress code, and responsibilities so that everybody on the choir knows exactly what to expect. Clear expectations. 9th out of 10 principles, honor financial stewardship, comes from chapter 10, verses 32 through 39. This one's repeated under stewardship as well. The people promised to bring tithes and first fruits to support God's house. Stewardship was built into their covenant of obedience. Nehemiah 10, 32 through 39. So what's this key principle here? Vision is supported by faithful stewardship. Giving generously and sacrificially. A lay leader, a youth lay leader, encourages teens to give part of their allowance, part of their money to missions, teaching ownership through stewardship. Beautiful. The last principle. Lead in the hard task of repopulation and recommitment. This comes from Nehemiah chapter 11, verses 1 and 2. To repopulate Jerusalem, 1 out of every 10 families was chosen to move into the city. It was a sacrifice, but it ensured God's work continued. It was about relocation, sacrificial commitment. So what's the principle? Vision sometimes requires personal sacrifice. As an example, a church member agrees to serve in a struggling ministry area, even though it's less convenient, less popular, to help the church grow stronger. 10 principles from theme number 2, vision and purpose, casting vision and calling people to God's work. Let's not just be listeners in one ear and out the other, but be contemplating the principles and ideas toward integration and application. So take a moment and reflect on these questions. Do I take time to listen and assess before I act? Or do I rush to fix things without fully understanding them? How clearly and simply can I explain the ministry vision God has placed on my heart? Am I willing to stay committed to God's calling, even when it requires sacrifice or meets opposition? Vision and purpose keeps God's people moving in the right direction. Nehemiah's example shows that vision is not about the leader's dream, but about God's mission. It requires careful planning, clear communication, faithful stewardship, and courageous, dare I use the word courageous, leadership. When leaders cast vision and call others to join in God's work, the church is united and strengthened for kingdom impact